happening, people? Welcome to the Cassius Show. Thank you for tuning in. It's Monday, September 17th, 2018. We're here in Edmonton, Canada, and this is episode number 106 of the podcast. Happy to have you guys on board. We have an interview for you today. So, a little bit of backstory for the interview that you're about to hear. So, essentially what this interview is being the fly on the wall for a backstage, raw, uncut dressing room conversation with Buzz in his Melvins dressing room. The first 10 minutes or so is casual conversation. Basically, me and him just started going back and forth, and there wasn't really any discussion of when we were going to start the interview. So essentially, I just started recording. So off the top, you're going to hear him talking about the weather, how we survive it, being in such a cold climate here in Edmonton, and we start the conversation from there. So again, it's kind of like fly on the wall type stuff. We go for about 10 minutes of this 13-minute interview. In the last couple of minutes, they started to sound check the drums. Now, like I said, we ran for 13 minutes. I was going to run for at least 30 minutes. I had a lot to talk about with Buzz. But the fact of the matter is that the band and the road crew and the management are all on their own schedule. And I would have loved if I could have got them to stop sound checking the drums for a couple of minutes so I could complete the interview. But the fact of the matter is, and if you have any experience with bands or being around bands, you know this, to the minute, everything matters when it comes to these schedules because they are such tight schedules. So I made it, my executive decision, I guess, and I only continued the interview for a couple more minutes. I could tell it was becoming difficult for Buzz to concentrate. It was becoming difficult for me to concentrate. If you can imagine, we're in a room and right outside the door is a drum kit, quite literally. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this is a different kind of experience than my other interviews. This is a fly on the wall type thing. And, I decided to release it because I never want to hoard content. I'm a fan of a lot of different bands, and I love different interviews and tidbits in audio and video clips, even if some of them are a little rough. It's a piece of the band's history, and there's some cool stuff that can be unearthed there. So I was thinking, from my perspective of a fan of what I wanted to hear. So with that, I present to you guys my conversation with Buzz Osborne. This is not one you want to miss, so I'm glad you checked it out. Let's run it. Goes hand in hand.
I don't know how you're going to do it.
We hardly survive it. Me speaking personally, at least. I find it takes a lot out of you during the year.
Are you from here?
Yeah.
You only know this.
Yeah, I've lived in other places in Canada, but that didn't help. Halifax.
Not
East Coast. Yeah, exactly.
A little different. Slightly warmer, maybe. Mm-hmm. Edmonton's brutal.
It is.
It's like the North Pole.
Where do you live right now? Do you get that where you are?
Los Angeles. Fuck no.
Yeah, definitely not.
I've been in California 25 years. Or LA 25 years.
Crazy.
I've lived in California more than half my life.
You don't live in Seattle?
No, I haven't lived there since the mid-'80s.
I bet people still think you do.
They do. All the time.
Preconceived notions.
That's all right. No, I don't care. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Most of my work has been done in California.
Okay. That's a good fun fact.
Yeah, 99% of it.
Cool.
And I really like the idea of leaving where I grew up and starting over in a completely new environment and making it work.
Yeah.
That kind of intrigued me.
And you did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Completely started over with nothing. $600 in my pocket. That was it. That's all I had my entire life of working, whatever,
Yeah.
Guitar amp, no furniture, some records,
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No furniture at all, nothing. Sleeping bag, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
Stripped down.
Nothing. Nothing to go home to either.
Wow.
So.
How much did it take out of you to make a decision like that?
Nothing. I did it instantly. Without even hesitating.
Wow.
I mean, there's a saying, you can say nothing, you can do nothing, and then you can be nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a hockey saying, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
Yeah. That basically sums it up. How have you observed the difference of, I guess, what you could call the day-to-day LA lifestyle and the culture since you first got there?
Well, it's a big city. It's basically a desert type of community as far as that's concerned. But LA is gigantic. And it's really easy to lose yourself in the massive metropolitan area that is LA. Like here, Edmonton's basically a small town.
Yeah.
It's like if you fart sideways, people know about it. Right. I saw you going to the doctor. What's wrong? Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I saw you over at the auto parts place. What's wrong with your car? It's like there's nothing. You can't do anything without everybody knowing.
Right.
That doesn't interest me. I have no interest in that. I want to operate under the realms of society as we know it.
Right.
And that attracts me. That's attractive to me. I don't have any interest in playing games or spending a lot of time trying to fit in. I just have no interest in it at all. I'm not a 9-to-5 guy,
Right.
I don't have any idea that someone owes me anything, or that the world owes me anything, or that I don't take what I get for granted. I'm very dedicated to what I have, as opposed to what I think I should have had. I think people get caught up in those kinds of things, and they lose track of what's important and what isn't.
Yeah.
There's never been a time when we didn't continue to stymie the powers that be as far as like rock music is concerned, because we were never on the track that they thought we were. We never were doing what they thought we were doing.
Okay.
We never were in line with any of those sorts of things. I mean, we're never like a.
It was less conformist.
Less conformist, but it's like people have some idea that you're trying to do something that you're not trying to do.
Right. Like a disingenuous kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Well, they view like let's say take something like the Warped Tour or pop punk in general. It's like people view that this is how you do it. Mm-hmm. This is what you're doing. Oh, well, I never liked that. I never liked that idea.
Right.
Very much not so much being a. It's not like you're being a. I'm not being perverse. It's like I'm just going to do something different. No, I like stuff that's different. Not always, but generally. And I think people can handle it. It won't be millions, but it'll be enough.
Right. And it comes from the raw passion in your heart, and that's what you can tell.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have much patience for foolish behavior as far as that's concerned. And I don't really understand things that aren't logical.
Yeah.
I think people make the wrong decisions all the time based on emotion, and usually it's if they just spend time thinking about it, they'd probably do something different.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So that interests me that you spent so much time in California, being that it seems like there's a stereotype that so many people are exactly that way. They feel like they're owed everything. They act based on emotion, but then again, you mentioned that I guess it's big enough that you can kind of avoid that. So do you just not struggle with it?
Well, if I lived here, I would avoid it. It wouldn't be hard.
Right. Okay.
But it would be harder to hide out, actually. But you could, I would find somewhere that didn't feel threatening to me, and I would live in a situation in a way that would be surprising to most people, probably. Yeah. Probably. I mean, if you followed me around on a daily basis at home, it would be much different than what you would imagine.
Okay.
Much different.
From your perception, what do you think people imagine?
Typical rock and roll type, that stupid shit, But I was beyond all that a long time ago. I mean, I always figured if I was going to work, I was going to work a lot. When I had a job and I needed money, I didn't take days off. I worked, 75 days in a row, 80 hours a week, just whatever, Yeah. I mean, I don't think that kind of stuff is weird. I think the think any other way is going to lead you down a road of hideous mediocrity, you know?
Wow.
I think.
Well, it's too predictable, and we've seen where it ends people up at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in it, you know?
Fair enough. Well, that's really interesting off the top. Now, the new record that you guys have released here is called Pincus Abortion Technician. Do you feel that this is the most experimental you guys have gotten on a record?
Oh, we've made weirder records, but I think it's different than what we've done. That's what attracted me to it. It's the first record that I didn't write most of the material on it. That was kind of cool. We had just put out a double album last July, and so it was nice to have that much material come out in less than 1 year. Mm-hmm. And if you put those two projects together, they're really quite different from each other, you know?
Yeah. And they were in such a short time period. Did you guys find it hard to switch gears like that, or was it natural?
No, not really. I mean, it's not hard to do. Those guys are really good players. They can handle pretty much anything we want to do without too much trouble. So they're it's probably not any kind of music they couldn't do.
Yeah. And now you guys have the presence of two bass players. What influenced that decision, especially for the tour?
Well, they were there, and it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
I liked the way they both play a great deal. I like both the guys. They're much different than each other. I think it works really well. You know?
Yeah.
It's a new thing for us.
It must be nice to always keep evolving and keeping it fresh as you go on. And speaking of evolving, I got to ask you, what's one thing that as you've kept going in the music business, you've grown to love that you didn't love in the first place or maybe didn't appreciate?
I'm really happy that we're able to do what we're doing. I'm happy that we can make a living playing music. I think that's really great. I've worked really hard to get to that point.
Is there anything you've grown to hate over the years?
I mean, the way that I think, as far as like my outlook on music, my outlook on life in general, or just, you know, the political landscape or anything, is not really any different than it ever was. Mm-hmm. I figured all that out when I was a teenager pretty quickly and pretty much stuck to it. And I've tested it out as time has went on. And I know that I'm not wrong about it.
Right.
So, you know, that's fine. And it's funny when you watch people make the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over. Yeah. And you just think, you know, I don't know what you're thinking, but none of that's going to work.
Right.
Whether it's music or managers or whatever's happening in the political landscape, it's nothing like what people think.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to,
you know?
not need to jump in.
No, go ahead.
Jump in, but I've known him a really long time, and I've learned a lot of, and been exposed to a lot of interesting things based on just stuff that he's already been into. That's way different than some of the assumptions I had when I was a teenager or when I heard punk rock for the first time.
Right.
So,
that's a really good point. Yeah, I think that people assume that since it's so fun and it's so outrageous and it's rock and roll that there is an actual depth behind it. But I think the fact of the matter is that there's probably more depth than a lot of other genres.
Well, the way we do it, there certainly is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not a lot of doors that are closed for us. You know, not really. We can do whatever we want. These guys are extremely good players. I mean, that's happened, you know, 90% of it.
Yeah.
Right there, you know.
Yeah. Must be hard to operate without that.
I've always played with people that were good, so I don't know. We have asked people to play with us, and we were already fans of what they were doing, generally. You know?
So it was always something that worked for you guys creatively. That's fantastic. So I thank you guys. I thank you so much for your time. And in closing, I just wanted to ask: can we expect any new music with Tool or Lustmerd coming up in the future?
Not that you know of.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. You got to keep us waiting. Hey, thank you so much.
You, man.
Really appreciate it. Nice meeting you as well.